Hello, everyone. Today is Friday, March 7th, 2025. My name is Roberta Weber, and I call myself the Human Differently Coach. I'm here today in this conversation about evolutionary living and finding how we can unlock what is possible, which feels very important to me at the minute. But I'm here with a dear friend, Emilia Ferraro. She's an anthropologist who has been working very deeply with Indigenous people down in South America, in Ecuador and Colombia, what is now Ecuador and Colombia. Um, and this has led her on a deep spiritual path of her own. So, hi, Emilia. Do you want to add
Hello,
anything to that?
good afternoon, I would say, to everyone. Thanks for this invitation, Roberta.
I'm very, very happy to do it. So, Amelia and I have worked together for many years and in many different guises. So Amelia first came to me, and she gives permission to say this as a client, first in acupuncture. But we have very many overlapping interests and concerns, and I think there's a deep spiritual connection that is there between us. And it's been one of the honors of my life as a healer, should I call myself that, to have worked with you. And we see a sort of bigger picture for why we might have been brought together. And sometimes our conversations were so deep that it really felt like it was important for us to open this up. And that's been one of the reasons why I thought, yes, I should probably get these kind of conversations, these discussions out there for others to hear, was because it felt so rich and so important, the things that you have to bring back, particularly from your time with the shamans and with Yehe herself. Um, so, if there's anything you want to add to that, that would be great. Otherwise, we can kind of go into the question that we had for ourselves for this time.
Yes, I think I let's go into the questions and then we'll in the conversation things will come up.
Things will come up perfect. So I had a set of 7 questions, but we're going to concentrate on just one for today. And the one that Amelia chose, I just love it, is what's a belief, practice, or idea that has radically changed your experience of being human?
Yeah, thank you. Well, you asked me when we started this conversation, and probably your main question was to discuss possibilities of being human, but differently, in a different way, and that a different way of living is possible. And I think this is really there isn't a time better than this one, the current one that we are going through to discuss what other possibilities are there for humanity. And I cannot reply to this question or discuss any of these issues without starting with my own experience and how I have realized that there are other possibilities. Um, and the experience that really changed my life completely and radically was the experience of eventually taking part to a shamanic ceremony in the Amazon with shamans of the Co Bain population in the area of the Putumayo River between Ecuador and Colombia. And two things I need to say here. First, that this is the first time that I open publicly, that I talk publicly about this experience. It's taken a long time because this is sacred to me, and it's sacred to the indigenous people, the Siobain specifically, that is the population that has welcomed me and led me by the hand through this journey, but also to many other um, populations and groups in the Amazon and elsewhere. Anyway, and secondly, I have asked permission to the shamans to talk publicly about my experience and their spirituality, the ancestral spirituality of the Siobain people. And so what happened was that as an anthropologist, I had been spending a lot of time with indigenous people. And when I encountered the Siobain shamans, I had been already lived in and on and off in South America for with indigenous people for over 20 years already. But I had always refused to partake into ceremonies because I thought, as a gesture of respect, also because I've always known that this was an essential part of their life. That it wasn't part of my life, it wasn't part of my culture. So I didn't want just to have an exotic experience or, know more about that so I could write papers, academic papers, and books or whatever else. I didn't want to do that, so I've always refused to do that. But then it became part of my personal journey. And so I decided to, engage in a different way with these indigenous people, not as an anthropologist, but almost as a patient, I would say, in search of healing and in search especially of meaningfulness, if you want, the meaning of life. Because I was at a very difficult point in my life when, despite being successful in my work and in other, having a fantastic family, etc., etc., I felt that I was lost in terms of why am I here for, what this is about. So it was during the first ceremony that really my life was radically changed because it's very difficult to verbalize. And I'm sure that whoever has had experience or spiritual experience or mystic experience find that it's equally difficult to verbalize what one experience or feels. But I can say that it was like I was thrown into the middle of a whole different realms of reality. As in, I realized that what the indigenous people used to talk about to me as an anthropologist, and that I've always respected as part of their culture, but at the end of the day they were like cultural event in a way. They believed in that because their culture had led them to believe, like we believe in values because we are brought up into a particular belief system. Well, that wasn't actually that way, and that those things that were those type of reality, those realms of reality were ontologically true. And by ontologically true, I mean that they were not necessarily the outcome of culture of a particular belief system culturally taught in a way, but they did exist, and they existed for me as well. Someone who was very far from the upbringing of indigenous people. So that really first of all put me into a terrible crisis because it was really difficult to combine that type of understanding and experience, make sense of that when I had no map to navigate that. But it also put me on a journey on which I'm still on, that has led me then to see life in a different way and with different eyes.
Can I clarify on that? So,
Yeah.
so for you, if I'm hearing you correctly, so the when you had interactions with the shamans before, then it felt like the context of how they understood their world through their culture, etc., allowed for these more mystical experiences. And if I'm hearing you correctly, then there was an assumption that within you that maybe that wasn't a possibility, but that had been radically changed once you went into
Yes,
the experience.
yes. I mean, the shamans or indigenous people talk about, for example, plants and animals in a very different way. For them, they are, a tree is a tree sometimes, and at other times is the soul of an ancestor, and at other times is an entity of its own, an intelligence, etc. And I didn't, it's not like I didn't believe them.
Yeah.
I did believe them, but I thought it was for them because they had been brought up for centuries within that frame of beliefs, whereas it didn't apply to me, and
Yes.
it wouldn't. I couldn't. I would look at a tree, and it was just a tree, was just a tree for me at that time, and then it was through this path with them that I started to also have experience of a tree sometimes being something else,
Mm. Mm.
um, or having intelligence, and so connecting with the tree, but also connecting to the natural, what we call the natural world, in a very different way. And so they unlocked, say, for me, this the door of a different type of not only communications but actually relationship and perception of the world in its widest sense, opportunity that is in us, all of us. I wasn't a chosen one. There are thousands and millions of people who um, have, have this way of perceiving and relating with nature in a very different way from the way in the West we tend to approach, for example, nature as maybe resources, or who believes that plants have intelligence. However, there is now a strand of science that is starting to actually realizing that yes, uh, even plants and trees have intelligence. They speak, they communicate, and they have messages for us as well. Of course, the language of science is different than the shamanic language, but it doesn't necessarily have to go. They are not necessarily mutually exclusive, and so um, yeah, that's what it became reality to me, something that was um something that I always thought was, abstract and maybe unrealistic. It became reality.
I think the place of the emergence of a new way of having relationships is a really key feature with this. And
Yeah,
from my perspective, a really key feature of to human differently, as I, have
yeah,
started calling it.
absolutely. And that's when I started to understand that there was a different way of being in the world. And I think that if one doesn't open to the possibility that there is the possibility, say, that it is real to being in this world in a different way,
Mhm.
first of all, then nothing else is possible. So the first step is to open up to the possibility that it is possible, and first. And secondly, this, in my view, of course, this means opening up ourselves to not only respecting other ways of being, but actually realizing that we humans are not necessarily the highest species on Earth. And I'm not saying that, here usually people then would come and say, oh, do you think that then rabbits, we are like rabbits and that's not the point. The point is that we live in a system, our worldview is a system where there is a hierarchy. And so we look at everything through this hierarchy, and this hierarchy also assigns values, and ranks. And so if we suspect, which in themselves also imply making judgments.
Hmm.
But if we suspended judgment and we didn't really, judge whether a plant or an animal is more or less intelligent than us, but just suspend this judgment and open up to the possibility that they are intelligent, that possibly different type of intelligence, but is a type of intelligence that could complement our intelligence. And so that we are a species, we are a community of species, and
Mm.
each one brings something to the common home that we inhabit, then things may start changing. I don't know if I've been very clear about this or not, because I find it, I'm very passionate about it, but also I find that sometimes it's complex to render in words.
So, so just reflecting back what I think I'm hearing, because I completely agree, but trying to organize it in a way to bring home certain points that that through opening up to the possibility of an intelligence innate in everything, and we would even say in non-living things, we find intelligence within stones and within water, even though that can move, so there's a level of intelligence that is a part of the vibrational component for anything, whether it's organic or not. A little bit more lively of a conversation with organic things, but and so that place of that intelligence and seeing ourselves within a level of communication of that, instead of at the top of a pyramid, actually seeing ourselves as a part of spreading out in a width ways, and having a knowledge of our own vibrational component, and then starting to feel the vibrational component that could be seen as intelligence in all that there is, that we're really opening up. And that's the possibilities. That's opening up to a very different way of having communication um, with our environment. Is that, or did I just complicate it more?
No, 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 no. I think there are many ways of saying it, and there are many ways in which this can be manifested. But the core idea is to try and start going beyond ourselves and opening up to the idea that we are not the only species in this world, and that the other species are not there to serve us
Yes.
as resources, but we are a community of species, each with different types of intelligence, each of which contributing to life and the many manifestation of life with a capital L. And so, yes, even stones or what we might think of matter, all matter is actually living.
Yeah.
It's living matter. And so, these are all ideas that so far would have been, well, still in some cases, maybe ridiculed, or that would go against any conventional, I would say, understanding, and even against what Newtonian science would and physics would say. But there are now more and more and more scientists and physicists and chemists also, um, who are more and more putting in evidence that actually this is so. The water has memory, stones uh, are living being, well, not living being, but there is some kind of livingness,
Yes.
liveliness in them. And so that we cannot just think of them as object, inert matter. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so even science is now starting to really confirm, again, as I say, in a different language and through a different path, what indigenous people have been saying for centuries.
And if we can go into, if it feels comfortable and right for you, to go into the experiences that you had when in your journeys, um, being held by the medicine people, the shamans, was there a message that you felt it was important to really foster within yourself, and would that message help others, do you think?
So you're asking me whether during this journey I found that there is a message that I can give to others. Yes, my message is my witness. It's my testimony of what has the way it has transformed me, and the way I have become transformed. And I have gone through very difficult situations with my health, and if I hadn't had the support of the medicine people and the experiences that I had, if I hadn't previously been um, already predisposed to see things in a different way, I don't think I would be here in the way I am. Um, to be really clear, I've been on the verge of dying more than once, and I've gone through major things in my health. So I lost a leg. I almost died because of something to my lungs. I have a chronic progressive condition, and but what I've understood, and this is part of the message that I would like to also maybe spread, is that for example, again, when I lost my leg, it was a time of really, it was probably the unhappiest time of my life, and um, and I had taken some time off. I wanted to take some time off from work because I felt that I desperately need a change of life. And at that very moment, I started to feel unwell. Well, there were problems with my left leg, and eventually I had to undergo an amputation of the leg. And it struck me that it was at that time that I had asked for a change of life. So one has to be really careful about what one asks. But I realized when it became evident that the amputation was inevitable, I was desperate. Of course, I was desperate, but at the same time, I felt that I remember thinking, okay, life obviously has other plans for me, and there is no it's useless and it's not helpful to resist what is inevitable. Then I said, okay, I embrace this, and I'll go with what comes. Let's see what comes out of that. And so this change of attitude towards illness, not as a punishment, but then has become, now that I'm 10 years on, 10 years from that moment, I can say that that has opened up again doors to different realms of reality. And he brought so many gifts. He brought so many amazing things that I never
Mm.
imagined could come to my life. Um, and so the healing journey, actually, or the illness journey, became a spiritual path, a spiritual journey of discovery of myself, first of all, and who I really am, because that's another big point in all of these conversations. We don't know who we really are. If you ask someone, who are you? They will start telling you what they do. You know, I'm a lawyer, I'm a solicitor, an academic, I am whatever. And so we are defined by the job that we do. That's something we do, not who we are. And so this was for me the learning, the teaching and learning of who I really am as a human being. And that led me, as I say, to navigate different worlds that were not evident to me, or I couldn't have accessed them hadn't I had all of these experiences and the openness to accept what was coming my way. I don't know if that answer your question.
So it certainly it explains um the quite the high price that your spiritual journey exacted on your physicality. It's definitely been a transformation at that level. And
Yeah, but again, yes, I think this is not something that is inevitable. I think every story is very
no,
specific to
yeah.
the person, the individual person, and I wouldn't want to tell anyone that every spiritual journey or the transformation is that this new way of being in the world requires of us necessary has the same high price. Um, Partly, I think, is always a difficult journey because we need to unlearn a lot of things that we have taken for granted and also about ourselves. And so unlearn this process of unlearning or taking off layers of assumptions or beliefs or things that we thought were true. This might be very difficult, but not for everyone. Again, it depends. In my case, I think that the physicality is really important because I spent all of my life until I was an adult, well into my adulthood, basically living in my head and not paying attention to my body. And so this was a way, it was a very extreme way to forcing me to inhabit, to dwell within my body, my whole body. Um, and then yes, it was extreme because thinking back, I realized that there were other points on the journey, since I was born, other points in on the road, say, in which I could have taken different decisions and, allowed space for my body or for this physicality to become one with me. But I didn't take those opportunities. And so at the end, I guess life decided that the only way was to go to extreme measures. And to me it's absolutely clear because one of the first or maybe most striking um, visual um, results of this transformation is my body. And in another way, I also felt, the spiritual, first of all, the spiritual, I want to say this. I always thought that the spiritual was something that has very little to do with the body. And in fact, the spiritual journey is goes through the body, is very, very bodily, rooted in the body, because it's the only way we can live in this dimension. So there is no possibility of being a spiritual person, or even finding spiritual, um, being on a spiritual path, other than being in this path fully in one's body. Um, and the other thing I also once realized that, there is a message that is carved into my body, basically. And is a message for, I don't know what the message is individual to, and is unique to whoever meets me, but I know that there is, because I have been told by many people that looking at me the way I am now, has, um, puts in motion some things in them, or allows them to reflect on their own life. So I don't know, but I think it's like, I don't know how else to say, it's carved in my body, with I have a prosthetic leg which is visible, I have scars. And so it's like, it's my spiritual transformation that is carved in my body, and it becomes body as well. But also it's evident. Well, not, I mean, I don't go naked, in the street and anything. But I want to believe um, that has transformed my body in a way that allows me. Well, it's not that I want to believe, I know that the body I have now is a very different body from the one I had. And in this body, I can sense and see, and, it's a sensing device for existence.
A sensing device for existence. You were relaying it as almost like this isn't the right word for it, but almost like a flag for others, that it allowed a very different conversation with others, your body in the form that it is now, when they see you, when they reflect then on their own physicality or humanity, or health, etc., that they have there's new possibilities that come into them around that.
Yeah,
I feel like there's a little nugget there that's maybe would be useful for anybody who might actually listen to this. Um,
what do you mean?
well, I think just at the place of your, I think in humanity is quite good at feeling like scars are the wrong thing, and it shows that there's something wrong with you. But
Yeah,
actually, that having a place of holding so openly a difference, and recognizing within ourselves that it actually that difference doesn't reflect something diminished. It
yeah.
reflects a transformation, a transmutation, all of those things. And that,
Absolutely,
yeah.
absolutely. And I think that it's not only my experience. I mean, I think of a lot of women, and some of whom are my friends, who have gone through a mastectomy, for example, and because they had breast cancer, and they decide not to have a reconstruction of their breasts, and they wear the scar, um, with pride. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, you also, in our discussions previous to this meeting, this conversation, you had asked whether I had some source of inspiration, and one of my key source of inspiration is a book by Clarissa Pinkola Estes,
Hmm.
um, uh, Women Who Run with Wolves. And in that book, she talks about the clan. the Scar clan, the people of the Scar, and being a member of the clan of the Scar is actually, it's what you say. It's actually a high honor because it means that one has gone. She, of course, she says it in a different language, but the way I understand it is that you've gone to hell and come back on the other side, transformed into a more whole, wiser, richer in knowledge person, a more rounded, more rooted, more centered um, person with the body that such person needs to have.
Yeah, I totally agree. What would you say, and this will be our last question before
Yeah,
we start to wrap things up, of what your experiences and the physical transformations and that becoming a part of the sky or the Scar, excuse me, tribe, so to speak, or Scar clan, I think she said. How is that how is that utilizable, just not the best language, but within society by others? What I mean is, from my experience, it is those people who have gone to hell and come back. In Chinese medicine, we say that is the point of healing, not removing pain, but actually coming back with a virtue, and that
yeah,
creates a place of expansion within ourselves that is a mirror, is a resource for those around us, for the whole world, for the whole universe. And I wondered, in your direct experience with the ceremonies that you had, is there a specific resource that you feel you hold that is important for those who are listening to understand?
I'm not sure I understand your question correctly. I would say the specific resource, as in myself.
Yes. What are
Um,
you holding vibrationally within you?
okay, I hold experience and knowledge, if that makes any sense, and is the knowledge, the spiritual knowledge that comes from having gone through the experience I've gone through, but also, I guess, the energies and vibrations of the plant teachers and the plant medicines that the shamans use in their daily life, but that I have taken as part of my healing journey and journey of discovery. And those vibrations are, the shamans say, once that you take it, once you take some of these plants, they put roots in yourself. So even if you will never ever again take any of those plants, um, the roots are still there. If you can feel them, and if you can, see them, and if you want them to be there. So it's not the same with every plants. These are sacred plants, plants of the god. They call it the teacher plants. And there are a number of plants that are teacher plants and that require to be ingested in sort of a ceremonial or ritualized spaces, or following certain rules. They are not to be taken on one's own. For
Mm,
example,
mm.
they cannot be taken um, uh, for entertainment, say, or there's a word that I can't remember now. It doesn't come to me, but they cannot be taken, lightly, say.
Like
Um,
recreationally.
recreational, thank you, in
Yeah,
recreational ways, because they are sacred plants.
yeah.
But these plants, um, I am far away from the Amazon, and I've been for almost 10 years now. and I feel that these vibrations and energies are still in me. I don't know whether that was
Um, it
the
is
question.
that, but it's also, is there a specific virtue, if you could put it in a succinct
Yes, and
way,
I
that
don't
it's
know
not?
whether to
Yeah.
say it's faith, or I don't really like this word, but it's the virtue to me is that nothing is the belief, the deep, really deep belief that nothing happens by chance. And so, for example, in the case of an illness, it's a way the body has to tell you that something is not going, it's not right. And so instead of feeling angry, and yes, we are afraid, of course we are afraid, and I was afraid as well, but without, instead of staying locked into the fear and the anger and the why me and why this and why now, it's a way of opening, asking the question why, meaning what is it that you're telling me, what do I need to change, and so it becomes an awakening, the point, the door to awakening to other things.
So it's a trust in a process of experience as a human,
Yes, it's the trust in life. I think it's the trust in life,
a trust in.
and trust that life is not only what flows in front of our bodily eyes, that there is so much more. It is so richer than what we can see, or we are able to see with our bodily senses, that there is so much more that we sometimes don't even imagine. And so trusting that trust, and then it becomes a trust in the process, because once you've gone through step one, then something else happened, and then you say, well, it can't be, it will be for something else. And well, this is my experience anyway.
I know I said it was the last one, but I'm curious what you would say of the richness of that, where we're opening to senses that aren't just our ordinary, but maybe extraordinary. Maybe some people call them the clair senses, like clairaudient, clair sentient. So what has that given you to open? And that
um,
will be the last.
it's the ability to enter in contact, for example, to understand people beyond their words, or to the connection, not the, yeah, a deeper connection with people, for example. Obviously, with the people who are closer to me, people who, yeah, but also people who are far away from me.
Hmm.
Um, and to understand, even without them saying no. So, for example, I wake up one morning with someone in mind, and then and that day this person calls me, or I call them because I sense that there's something, and in fact it was, a call from me was needed, say, for them. So this ability to enter in empathy with people, but also with the vibration and energies around me,
Yes.
in a way that I didn't have before.
So the richness in itself and the opening into greater vibrations of connection, of communication, of
But the
empathy.
richness of
Yeah.
experience as well,
Yeah.
so I learned that life is really experience. And we tend to again classify experiences, good or bad experience, negative and positive. And one day I had this, and I was on a bed in hospital without a leg, and I had this big revelation that if we can suspend judgment, all that is left is experience. And life is nothing other than experience. So the more experience we have, the richer we are. And even if that experience is difficult, yeah, as long as we are able to open to the teaching that that experience brings to us, then it becomes a good experience because it's made us richer than and more and wiser, and is added to, the knowledge that we have of existence. Then there is no bad experience. I don't know if that makes sense.
It
But
makes
so
total sense to
richness,
me.
and the more you experience, the more you live, and
Yes.
so the richer your life.
And it sounds like that became really your meaning, that it opened you up to have that richer experience, allowed you to feel the meaning that you'd been aching for,
Yes,
but
yes,
it led you on your
yes,
spiritual.
absolutely, absolutely. It's also just an example. It's I realize the extraordinary nature of ordinary things. You know,
Yes.
we could have another
And
three
we
hours
will. We will.
talking. But when you don't have a leg and then you have a prosthesis and you imagine that you go back to walking, yeah, and it's not like that. You have to start walking, learning to walk again, and then you realize really all that it takes to take a step,
Yeah.
all that body, the organism has to do to take one single step that we usually do. We take steps without thinking. It's almost automatic. We don't think about that. It's an extraordinary
Yeah.
endeavor.
Yeah.
And um, and in that there is also who among us remembers how they have learned to walk. None of us remembers because we were too little. Well, I do now. I know what it takes to learn
Yeah.
to walking,
Yeah.
and I think this is extraordinary.
And there can be such joy within that, with every single step that you take, with every
Yes, and especially
movement of the
awareness,
body.
consciousness. Awareness of how extraordinary every step that one takes is.
Yeah.
Is not give it for granted anymore.
That sounds
And like that, a lot of other things.
yes.
So the
Yeah.
physicality, going back to your physicality, hadn't it been so physical, probably I wouldn't have been able to become aware of the richness and the extraordinary nature of our body. And I say organism because it's not only the matter, the flesh, the blood, but there's something else in our body, what keeps it together, that it's an extraordinary tool, I would say, uh, to live, to be,
To
to
be,
be.
yeah. Yeah. To be experiencing
Yeah.
the consciousness that directs, or the direction of the consciousness that creates the matter, creates our form,
Yes.
allows us to live, learn, laugh, all of those things is just unbelievable. Um, we're going to leave it there. We will talk
Yes.
again, and I think we have much to cover. But I thank you so much, Emilia, for
No,
being.
thank you for the opportunity um, to share my experience um,
I
with
think,
with you and with others.
yeah,
Thank
I
you.
think we have a lot because I know of the richness that is there in the messages that you've brought back, and so it'll be lovely to have opportunities to explore that as well. Because
Whatever you want.
I think a lot of those messages are really important for people to hear, and your experience is very unique and um, uh, really important, and not everybody gets that opportunity. So, yeah,
No, no.
yeah,
But everyone gets the opportunity, you know, in a different ways.
in a different way.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right, my dear.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very
Thanks very
much.
much.
All right. And thank you to everyone who's listening, and we'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.